Що ж, привіт, друзі! Сьогодні буду брати інтерв'ю у американця-сироїда-фрукторіанця. Ми зараз знаходимося на Балі, і я навіть ніколи не могла подумати, що знайшовши його інстаграм в аккаунті, я познайомлюся з ним вживу. Hi, Jeff!
Hi!
Nice to meet you! So, can you please introduce yourself, your history, why you go to veganism, what is your turning point?
In English or Ukraine?
In Ukraine you can say hi, привіт to my people.
Привіта!
Yeah.
So I got started in raw food about 6 years ago. I went raw, and for the 10 years before that I was chronically sick with really terrible digestion and severe Crohn's disease. And so it took a very long time to find out about veganism before I really discovered it, and I was very anti-vegan. And so I spent a long time with very bad digestive issues, throwing up every day, puking, just the worst digestion possible. And then after 5 years of trying meat-based diets, I discovered that those didn't work. And so I started researching for raw food, and I was in the hospital. I mean, I have a very long backstory on how I really discovered it, but long story short, I was in the hospital one night, and the last diet that I had thought to try was raw food and vegan food. I was very anti-vegan. I was extreme, carnivore. I was actually a raw carnivore for like 6 months before I was a vegan.
Raw carnivore.
Yeah, before I went vegan.
You eat raw meat.
Yeah, for a long time, yeah. And it didn't work. I got worse, and so I didn't really understand, veganism. I didn't understand it, so I didn't know. And then I did a search on the internet and discovered raw food and veganism, and from the second I discovered it, I was a raw vegan for life, and it's been 6 years since that day, and I haven't touched cooked food since, or animal products. It just really made sense.
Do you have any step backs when you was on raw diet and you tried cooked food again sometimes?
Well, as an experiment, I tried once. I made cooked potatoes and baked onion just to taste it, to see if it would excite me. This was probably a year after going raw. I had a girlfriend at the time who was vegan but not eating raw food really, and I just wanted to see what it would do and to see if I would even be interested in it, because my mind was like, oh, raw vegan, that's the spiritual path to health and pure happiness. It's more complicated than that, but I tried it, and after 3 bites I was like, this isn't for me. I don't need it. So I have no need for cooked food. I'm so happy eating raw food. A lot of people don't ever really get to the place where they love everything they're eating, just because they still have a lot of gourmet food in their diet, or they don't do the work to clean themselves out and to really detox. But for me, I really love everything that I'm eating, so I have no need to really go back. Not that I judge anybody if they eat cooked food. I just personally don't really do it.
How long did you have this detoxification symptoms, and what it was?
I mean, I'm still going through things, 20s, I'm 38, so 30 years of eating crappy food.
American diet,
The worst of standard American diet, like candy and soda and cereal. Oh, peanut butter was like healthy food for me, like donuts and cakes and candy, ice cream and chicken wings and KFC and McDonald's. Every meal was not healthy, So I got really good results going raw for the first 2 years, and I had all sorts of up and down symptoms. I was like bedridden. I was laying in bed for 2 years, and so eventually I started juicing and eating fruit, and that through that first 2 years, every month was some crazy detox, and so I spent 4 years on raw food and juicing before I really got into fasting, and then every month has been different. I'm in really good health now, so I only feel like I'm detoxing when I do a water fast. But in the first 3 or 4 years that I was eating raw, I always had something that I was detoxing, skin, breakout on my skin, headaches, and a lot of emotional things. I cried a lot, just going through letting go of my ego, and realizing my relationship to the earth compared to what it used to be. And so it's just been a journey, really, and I feel like I'm still a beginner. You know, I'm still like I'm just getting started now.
Did you have some experience with parasites?
Oh my God, yeah. Like, have you?
No, I didn't see them.
Oh yeah, so I've had thousands of parasites, like thousands. I've taken pictures of them. I've filmed videos of them. The first time I saw a parasite was about 2.5 months into a 90-day juice cleanse. 90 days, 3 months on juice.
Wow.
Yeah, I've done probably 300 days total on just juice. And when I saw one, the day before I saw the parasite, I had severe stomach pain. And then the next day I released it and just pooped out this crazy thing. And it was probably that long, covered in mucus. It wasn't alive, but then after that there was a lot of them. And I would take them out and put them on paper towel and look at them. And then I've even seen some like ones that were still alive, like still moving. And the first couple of years I was really interested in like pulling them out and discovering them and just seeing what the hell was coming out of me.
Did you have the people who support you, or a lot of them criticize you?
Zero support besides my girlfriend at the time. Yeah, I didn't really know anyone personally that was eating raw food. I saw it on YouTube and documentaries and stuff, and I was like, that's the way. I don't care if I know anyone that does this, it doesn't matter. And so I didn't really have any support. It was just me. And not having a girlfriend at the time who ate fully raw was very difficult, so so we split up. But yeah, it's tough. Most people don't have that much support because being a raw vegan is a very small percent of the population, and then being a fruitarian is even more tiny. It's like the tiniest percentage. And then being a fruitarian who practices water fasting and like the deepest forms of it's like I'm like 0.0001% of the population, you know, so there's not many of my type, but it's okay.
Yeah, of course. Did you do analysis before veganism and after?
A blood analysis?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. So I was in and out of the hospital, 50 times. Every time I go to the hospital, I have blood work. So I was very sick in my blood work. I was anemic. I was deficient in so many things. And I had recent blood work done like 3 months ago, and my blood is perfect. Like as good as it gets. Perfect B12 and iron. And it took a while. And most people think that you need to supplement to correct these things, but you really just need to detox yourself. And the deficiencies that a lot of non-vegans have will just go back to normal after you start giving your body like real food and hydration.
Can you explain about B12, where we get it if we're not eating meat?
Yeah, so B12 is actually, it's a vitamin.
Bacteria.
No. Bacteria produce B12.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of people don't understand that B12 is produced by certain types of bacteria. Some of them can be found in meat, in the soil, on the outside of fruit, but also our own gut has these microbes that produces our own B12. So a lot of people don't understand it. Like I eat fruit like mangoes, watermelon, pineapple, papaya. That's it. I eat some lettuce, and I have perfect B12, like better than most non-vegans, you know? And so when you get your body clean, the microbes in your stomach work efficiently and they can produce more B12. And so if you are deficient in B12, either as a meat eater or as a vegan, you either one, need to supplement, because if you're deficient in B12 for a long enough time, there can be damage. But for two, if you're willing to detox yourself, then you don't need to supplement with B12 if you're deficient. But a lot of people think that just as a vegan in general, you need to take a B12 supplement, and that's totally incorrect and false. You only need to take any supplement if you're deficient and unwilling to heal yourself.
Yeah. So what about the most hyped question about protein?
Oh, no.
Where do you get protein if you eat only fruits?
Totally. So protein is the core building block of all, really of all cells. And there's more than enough protein in a fruit and vegetable-based diet, because a lot of people are led to believe, based on 100 years of bullshit science, that we need more than 8 to 10% protein from our diet, and it's completely untrue. The longest living civilizations, the most how do you say this? The civilizations and the cultures that have the longest amount of life, the lifespan is the longest, and also have the least amount of degenerative diseases, are the societies who eat the lowest amount of animal protein. These are called the blue zones. They're typically around the tropical areas. They eat a lot of fresh fruit and vegetables. They will have typically less than 8 ounces of meat per month. A lot of these cultures do, and they live into their 90s without any signs of disease. Their skin is hydrated, they're healthy, they're outside, and so
they don't have fat.
They're not fat. Meat and protein comes with dietary fat, and so protein is super hard to digest compared to carbohydrates.
Yeah.
But it comes with fat, and so if you look at the entire world, pretty much everybody's fat or at least overweight. And it's because we think we need protein, so we eat animal protein, but with that comes excess fat. And if you eat too much of either, fat stores really easily in your gut and in your butt. And if you're women, it's in the booty.
Yeah.
Which is okay to a certain extent.
And also about combinations, because people don't eat pure meat. They eat meat with cheese and everything with combinations.
It's interesting, the dairy industry about 60 years ago found out really smartly how to sell more dairy by teaming up with the fast food industry to sell single slices of cheese, which that has really drastically increased the amount of obesity, even more so than processed sugar and like soda, because there's so much calories and fat in one little piece of cheese that once you start adding that to every meal, you're increasing your calorie count by like 150 calories each slice of cheese almost. 2 slices of cheese, and then beyond that, you're getting an extra 700 calories a day just in cheese. So that's almost 1/3% more calories than a person, 70 to 80 years ago would have been eating, when people were thin and fit and didn't really have a lot of the same health conditions that we do now.
And it also works like a drug.
Of course, it's stimulating.
Morphine.
Yeah, it's got casein one protein in it, which produces morphine, and it gives you almost like a heroin type feeling. It's like a drug. You feel like you're just being a hit of crack.
And I observed that a lot of people now who was like fruitarians and vegans starts to eat cooked food. What do you think?
Why?
Why they go back?
Well, I can't generalize everyone.
Yeah, of course.
But a lot of people never truly understand what it takes to thrive on a raw food diet. A lot of people never really truly do the work to completely clean their bodies out. Most people have in between 6 and 12 pounds on the low end of hardened plaque in their intestines. And so, it can take years to really build your gut to be able to break down and digest the fibers that are in fruits and vegetables. And if you think about eating animal foods and processed food for 20, 30, 40 years, you're going to have a microbiome that is built to digest that type of food. And so when you start eating like a high fruit or high vegetable diet, you can get like problems. So you have to correct those problems. And a lot of it is just doing several years of deep detoxing, juice feasting and water fasting, simple fruitarian diet. And a lot of people they don't last long enough. They're not willing to put in the work that it takes to really thrive on a fruit-based diet, because so many people that come into our lifestyle are sick. They're looking for an answer for their health, and they don't realize that it might take longer than 1 or 2 years, and they just quit. And because also cooked food is very satisfying, it's stimulating, and a lot of people get thin at first on a raw food diet, and so they're like, oh, I'm so skinny, I need to eat cooked food and bulk up. And it's like, no, you need to clean your body out so you can gain weight on raw food.
And train.
And exercise, and train, lift weights.
What was your the most strongest insights on this diet? Like maybe connection with conscious or body or system? What was?
Yeah. So I was never very spiritual before going on raw food. And you know, I didn't believe in God. I was quite closed-minded in many ways. In other ways, I was very open-minded. But when it came to like the spirituality aspect, I was like, I don't want nothing to do with that. And so, really, my first juice cleanse really opened me up. My 90 days, 3 months on juice, it really opened my mind of how connected we are to nature. And whether you call God nature or nature God, and whether you're connected to it or you think you're not, you are. And once you really let go of the old way of living and feel the energy from eating a more natural diet, it just kind of breaks open your heart a little bit to be exposed to a deeper meaning and a deeper connection to the food you're eating, the people you're communicating with, the animals on the planet, the plants on the planet, the air quality, the water, the pollution, the beauty, the sun. And so for me, it was going on liquids. Like you become so sensitive, right?
Yeah.
And so when you become that sensitive, you start asking questions like, why? Why am I this sensitive? It's because you've been masking your true feelings and also healing a lot of like damage from childhood. But
Yeah.
that was the first major thing. But the second major thing is I did a 3-week water fast, 19 days technically. And I didn't see God per se, but I was so freaking connected that it was just, my heart turned into a pile of mashed potatoes. It just turned into mush, and I became so loving, and I surrendered, and I forgave everyone and everything, and I just came from a place of love, and there's no way that that could have happened without really like reaching deep in and letting go of my addictions to food.
Wow, amazing. What advice can you give to those who are just starting out this path?
Maybe we'll hit 5 things. 5 quick things. Number 1, educate yourself. Follow people who have been successful on a raw food diet for 20 years. You know,
20 years.
Doug Graham, Lauren Lockman, Fully Raw Christina, The Life Regenerator, Lou Corona, Don Bennett, and so many other people. Follow people that are successful.
Successful, yeah.
Yeah, and you'll find the staple in almost all of these people's paths have been, they spent plenty of time healing themselves and detoxing themselves, and they typically eat a fruit-based diet, enough calories, and lower in fat. And so those are the 2 main things. The third one being try to connect with other people who are doing it so you don't feel so strange, so you don't feel like an alien. If you can't connect with other people that are doing it, then just stay up to date on social media and at least bring that information in your world so you're seeing raw food every day and being inspired. You know, amongst that, try to learn new fruits, try to discover new food. You know, there's thousands of varieties of bananas and mangoes just in those 2 fruits alone, and really start to fall in love with fruit and try to get off of salt. If you can get off of salt, it will make really loving a mango or a cucumber or just a piece of plain lettuce. It'll make it a lot easier. You'll be able to taste the true sensations of like real whole food. Yeah, that's 5.
Wow. Yeah. It's a question about libido. A lot of people thought that it's like a level down. Do you have an experience with it? Or?
I have lots of experience with libido. For one, because I had this health issue called hypogonadism, which is basically when your testosterone production slows down and your testicles shrink and you stop being able to produce semen, sperm.
Whoa.
And so this happened to me way before I was raw vegan. And I didn't think I'd be able to have kids, which I was very sad. I wanted to have kids. And so so that was very low. My testosterone was super duper low before raw food. On a meat-based diet, my testosterone was as low as it could be, and like it was around 80, when it should be like, you know, in between 500 and 900. And so I only eat fruit. I've completely healed all of that. My testicles are now normal size. My testosterone is, I think, 670, which is in the higher to normal range. And I eat watermelon, papayas, and mangoes, and pineapple. You know, so what they say about you need meat to have libido and to have high testosterone levels, it's complete bullshit. It actually lowers your testosterone levels over time because the byproduct of meat is so acidic, your body creates more estrogen to balance it, which makes men grow man boobs, which is why because they're eating so much meat, it's so acidic. Like, yes, you are going to get mass, but what's going to happen is you're also going to be making estrogen, and long-term high amounts of estrogen are greatly diminishing to the length of your life and also to your testosterone levels, obviously.
What about the children nutrition? Can children be the raw vegans from
birth?
Yeah.
Well, no. First, you need milk.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Mother's milk and not cow's milk.
Yeah.
And then, like the first additional food, like fruits, vegetables.
Yeah, the healthiest people that I've seen were adult parents who had been living as a raw vegan for at least 10 or 20 years, and then they had kids, and their kids became raw. And I know several people who have kids that are 20 to 23-year-old raw vegans, and they're the healthiest people I know. They never had allergies, they never had chronic illness, they were definitely not jabbed, you know. So the myth that we need protein it's so false that it's uncomprehendable, because mother's milk is predominantly fat and carbohydrate, and the type of fat and carbohydrate compared to mother's or cow's milk, the balance is so far off. There's so much more protein in cow's milk, which is why girls start developing huge boobs by the age of like 7, 8, and 9 now, and why everyone starts to get acne, because this stuff is just sludge sitting in there.
And also the pain in the menstruation cycle.
Exactly, yeah. And so if you really want to raise a healthy child, you, for one, will hopefully spend a couple years detoxing yourself before you give birth.
Yeah.
And when you do give birth, make sure you spend plenty amount of time breastfeeding, and then introduce a fruit-based diet afterwards. Because even a doctor will tell you, once you go from, you know, breast milk to food, the first thing should be like baby food. What is baby food usually? It's fruit. It's mashed fruit. It's cooked fruit. So obviously we should be eating the closest thing macronutrient-wise, carb, fat, and protein, to mother's breast milk, which is going to be fruit. And so once our body stops being able to digest lactose, then we start to move into carbohydrate digestion. And so that's why a lot of people are lactose intolerant, because you're not a baby anymore. You're not supposed to have milk.
Yes.
You know, that's why to me it's just insane that people are like drinking cow's milk thinking that they're a baby cow. You know, milk is for the offspring of that species.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, great.
It was very cool. Thank you for your experience.
Hope you guys got something out of it.
Па-па. Бувайте. Дякую за перегляд, підписуйтесь і задавайте свої питання в коментарях.